Okay, this is simply one page close read of chapter 1, and in a way I'm trying to mimic exactly what Jenkins, Ito, and Boyd have done in their book, Participatory Culture in a Networked Era. So I'm using a version of this book that I bought from Google Books, and it allows me to highlight and remark. So I'm just going to note here, one of the problems we have is going to be definition, and how shall we define? There are lots of different ways to define. Define is a verb. So I also looked at types of definition in Wikipedia, and while I'm not going to pursue those right now, I am going to pursue them as we begin to define participatory culture. It's interesting, he talks about a rhetoric of participation, and I think what he's talking about here is the kind of how some companies, some corporations, some even universities, especially in coursework, give off a patina of participation. And they use the rhetoric of participation, but it's faux participation. And I mentioned like the Kentucky Lottery, okay, its motto is you got to play to win. Well, yeah, but is this really the kind of participatory culture we want to encourage? And when he says all forms of participation are equally meaningful or empowering, I immediately thought of Animal Farm. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. 4 legs good, 2 legs better. That became the motto at the end of Animal Farm. I don't believe that's what he means, but you gotta get your jabs in where you can. So how are we defining participation? So what does he mean by meaningful participation? Is that an internal definition? What it means to me? Is it and being subjective, or is it external, or is it both? As far as I'm concerned, we build participation. We build knowledge in a network together. We build by and through participation. So it begs the question, are some forms of participation better than others? Is there a taxonomy of participation? And if so, what would be low level, and what in real life, and what would be high level in real life? So, for example, is this screencast I'm creating here high or low level? Is it derivative or is it creative? And he does suggest that there is a high participatory culture, and in it, one has complete control of the platform for participation. So another question that raises for me is that, does that mean that because Google ultimately controls everything, for example, in a Google Plus community platform, where this summer I participated with lots of others in CL MOOC, Connectivist MOOC, is that meaningful participation? Google controls it ultimately, not me. So I have to speak from my own experience, and I have to say no. As an owner of that, I could have ditched it, the whole thing, at any point. And that's a lot of control. But Google could at any time decide to give it the death penalty. They've done so before. So, what does this mean, this notion of control of the platform? And that also, because we're talking about issues of power, that also brings up the idea that, Google's platform is created to sell ads. They are an ad machine. because that purpose is different than the purpose me and others had, does that mean that my purpose is tainted? It becomes, I'm just being exploited. I'm not really participating. And I say it's often a matter of stance, is it not? I'm reminded of this image here, that I'm hoping will come up quickly. And if you'll notice in this image, you'll see that three very different shapes can create the same shadow. So are these little t truths and this is the big T truth? I'm not sure, but I think it fits what we're talking about here. Jenkins explores the idea that in the first place for participatory culture and textual poachers, and he creates this, I think, this continuum of spectator fan to participatory fan. So I really respect the idea that this comes from 20 years of experience with fans, and he has developed this particular theoretical understanding of participatory culture based upon this 20 years of particular experience. My question is this sample of female science fiction fans a representative one from which to generalize? Oftentimes I see this issue here where we talk about, we say not simply as consumers. Is there anything simple about consuming mass-produced content? I don't think so. I think Stephen Johnson has written about this and has decided that it has taken considerable increase in cognitive powers to understand, for example, the plot lines in television shows. And is the assumption that passive intake is simple correct? I think we're getting into taxonomies here. The worst taxonomies are kind of pyramidal, and it seems that there's a value system from low, that's where the serfs live, to high, that's where the kings live. And the implication is that consumption is low and participation is high. Lurker is low, creator is high. Is this true? You know, valorizing the creator, is that really what we want to do here? I've looked at this, and I've decided that I have to create a picture of this to understand it properly. So I'm going to show that to you. I created this Canva here to kind of visualize what Jenkins is saying here. So at the center, no matter what area he's studying here, the fans are at the center of it. The fans, and you'll notice in the background is kind of a flowchart arrow that says it goes round and round here. The fans and the text and the producers all interacting, and also the fans interacting by creating, having creative interventions and critical interventions. And I think this overlapping was something that was important for me to understand. Lastly, a little bit of maybe a bone to pick here. I'm not sure about this definition. And I say here that I prefer to think of culture as larger than the sum of its parts, it's gestalt. And you have all the genius loci of the folks as part of it, maybe creators, maybe lurkers. But altogether they create a zeitgeist that really is a gestalt. I can't prove that, I just think it's true. So take that for what it's worth. All right, that is my participatory exercise on the first few paragraphs of, the first paragraph of Participatory Culture and Network Terror, Chapter 1.